don't care who you think you are, this grass is 2 inches too tall and you need to move this vehicle right now.
Ma'am, calm down and step back behind the property line immediately.
The first thing I heard was the crunch of boots on gravel and my solar lights snapping off as a shadow cut across my Cul De Sac garden. Cold air hit my face when I opened the front door. The smell of wet asphalt, fertilizer, and my own coffee mixed in the dark. It was 6:12 a.m. on May 3, 2024. And there she was. Karen. Fuzzy robe, giant travel mug, hauling her trash can straight through my flower beds like they were a sidewalk built just for her. Petunias flattened under the wheels. She glanced up, saw me, and actually waved. Then she shouted across my yard that if I did not want people walking here, I should not have bought a house on a shared circle. I wish I could say this was new, but it wasn't. My little Cul De Sac garden sits right where the circle meets the mailboxes, and ever since I planted it, she decided it was her shortcut. I had asked her nicely 15 times. I counted. This whole mess really started because Karen trespassed across my Cul De Sac garden after 15 warnings, had no idea I am their sheriff, and she thought she ran the neighborhood because she sat on the HOA board. The other neighbors pretended they did not see her stump through my plants. They told me in quiet voices they were scared of her nasty emails and surprise inspections. But when I stood there barefoot in the cold, watching her crush another row of flowers, something in me snapped. I did what adults are supposed to do. I tried to talk. I pulled on a hoodie and walked over to the curb so we were in public space. Karen, I said, I'm asking you again. Please use the street. She rolled her eyes and told me the board had approved this as a community pathway. The board had never even asked me. Later that night, I went to the next HOA meeting. I sat in the metal folding chair while they rushed through the agenda. When I brought up my garden, the president glanced at Karen, then said they had more important business, like mailbox paint colors. Nobody backed me up. Karen smirked and said my garden was non-compliant and blocking access. Timeline item 1 April 5 at 4:27 a.m. false trespass call. That was when she had already called the non-emergency line to say I was lurking near her driveway while I was putting out my trash. They wrote it up like it was nothing, but I remembered. Walking home from that meeting under the dim street lamp, I felt my jaw lock. My line in the sand was simple. No one was going to bully me off my own property. But I also wasn't going to yell or do anything wild. I promised myself I would use proper channels only. So I started working the way I know best. I measured the property line with the survey stakes from closing. I pulled the plat map from my closing folder. I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder. Then I went down to City Hall on my lunch break. At the public records window, I asked for every call, complaint, and code report tied to our Cul De Sac. The clerk raised an eyebrow, walked to the back, and came out with a fat folder. The file landed with 63 pages. Most of them were from one name. Karen. Patterns of false reports can be prosecuted. That is the law in plain words. Here is the part Karen did not know. The quiet guy with the Cul De Sac garden is also the elected county sheriff. I do not wear my uniform at home. I drive an old pickup, not a marked SUV. To them, I was just the gardener. But I knew the statutes better than she knew her HOA handbook. I flagged 27 complaints she had made about different neighbors. Noise that was actually kids' birthdays. Suspicious persons who were just delivery drivers. I built a simple, clear packet. Timeline item 2 May 3 at 6:12 a.m. Karen crossing property line with trash. Timeline item 3 May 3 at 6:14 a.m. verbal warning from me, witnessed by 2 neighbors. I attached photos of her tracks in my beds. Then I called code enforcement and asked for a joint visit with our HOA compliance officer. Not as a sheriff throwing weight around. Just as a resident with very good paperwork. The payoff came 1 week later at 9:00 p.m. The HOA scheduled a yard standards walkthrough. Really, it was Karen's favorite parade of shame. She showed up with a clipboard and a little flashlight. I stood in my driveway, lights on, coffee in hand. Right on cue, she cut across my garden in front of everyone, dragging her can and stepping on my mulch. Then she pointed at me and shouted that I had threatened her and called 911 right there, on speaker, so the whole circle could hear. Several neighbors started filming. Blue and red lights washed over the trees a few minutes later. Two of my deputies stepped out of the cruiser, saw me, and their faces did that little flicker of surprise. "Evening, Sheriff," one of them said, loud and clear. You could feel the air change. All eyes swung from me to Karen. She went pale. I kept my voice steady. "Officers," I said, "I believe you are here for a report. We can start with my evidence." I handed over the binder. They flipped through the pages while neighbors' phones stayed up, recording. I watched the moment they hit the timeline, the photos, and the City Hall file. My deputy turned to Karen and asked her to explain why she was on my surveyed property line after repeated written warnings. The code enforcement officer, who had come along, unrolled the plat map on the hood of the cruiser. The boundary was clear as day. Another deputy read from the city report about her 27 complaints. He explained, calm and simple, that filing false reports is a crime. Patterns of false reports can be prosecuted. Now the only people laughing were the ones she had bullied for years, and it was a quiet, shocked kind of laughter as they realized she wasn't untouchable at all. The aftermath came fast. At the next special HOA meeting, the president's voice shook as he read my letter and the findings from code enforcement. Karen had trespassed, harassed neighbors, and abused the complaint system. They voted 5-1 to remove her from the board. The city fined her $1,200 for repeated nuisance calls and ordered her to pay for the damage to my garden. She now has to walk the long way around like everyone else. My yard is peaceful again. We even hosted a little Cul De Sac cookout, kids planting new flowers where her tracks used to be. Later that night, her teenage son came over with a plate of cookies and said he was sorry for how things had gone. I told him we just wanted a calm street, no more fear. Respect the lines. Respect the people. That is all. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.